way from Michigan State University, David Ferguson has spent a large portion of his career doing research into attitude towards women in motorsports. He's joining us today here at the Women with Drive Summit, driven by Mobil 1, to tell us why now is the time to drive. Hey, David.
Hey, Amanda. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. So first off, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone here, especially Cindy and Lynn, for inviting me and letting me come talk and share with you. The other thing I'm going to say is a big I'm sorry, because I'm the guy standing between you and lunch. Oh, it gets more ironic. I'm in the nutrition field, so I understand what I have to deliver here. So hopefully I make this informative, educational, and we kind of say some interesting things. So my background is in athlete development. I've spent my career trying to develop race car drivers to be successful and competitive at the elite level. So you might be interested why I'm going to talk about attitudes towards women in motorsports, and what you're going to find is I hope we can have a discussion on coming back to athlete development. So first off, I get the pleasure of standing on the stage, but I'm not up here solely. I had a lot of help to do this and be here, and what I'm actually going to talk about started with something that I wasn't involved with whatsoever. So back in 2005, Lynn St. James worked with some great researchers at the University of Indianapolis to develop a survey on attitudes towards women in motorsports. And then once I was able to connect with Lynn, we decided maybe we should do this survey again in 2022. So we did part of that, but I had a lot of help from great students. I'm going to embarrass them now and say their names. They're actually here. So the first is my Ph.D. student, Faith Hauk. She's doing a Ph.D. in exercise physiology, and she's actually about to enter the engineering Ph.D. program and come out with a dual Ph.D. in human performance and engineering. So when she graduates, I'm going to go work for her. And a second individual, Abby Faltis, actually did an internship with us. Her second week of the internship, she was in the Ganassi DPI car collecting data. And it was a cool enough experience, she decided she was going to come do a master's with us. So Cindy, this is my shout out to you. We do have internships. We do have graduate programs if you're interested and want to work with that. So, all right, that's my plug. I'm done embarrassing them for one day right now. Okay, so this survey was administered. You probably saw the survey if you're here, right? That was on the website to come be a part and engage with it. And we wanted to assess attitudes, feelings towards women in motorsport. And I'm going to kind of walk you through some of this right now. So first off, we'll present a little bit of the demographic information. That's right. He is going to talk data and statistics before lunch. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So in 2005, there were nearly 1,900 responses. Ours is substantially left. We're right at 413 right now. This is still ongoing. We started this a couple months ago, so we'd like it if you could push this out a little bit and kind of share these surveys. That'd be great. What is nice about our survey is in 2022, it's kind of an equal representation of men and women, as opposed to the 2005 survey that was 3/4 men. We had a great age range for both surveys, 8 to 84. I love that statistic. And then 2022, 18 to over 85. One thing that has shifted in 17 years or so is that the majority of responses from 2005 earned an income of about $40,000 to $80,000. In 2022, 2/3 of that income comes from over $80,000 a year. So this could be due to a couple of things. It could be due to just inflation, changing economics, but also it could be fans of motorsport are of a higher socioeconomic status now in 2022. So it's something to think about and something to kind of discuss. In 2005, Lynn ran this great survey. I'll give a side note here. Lynn St. James is the only person I agree with on experimental design. So she did a great job with that. Ran this great survey, got responses from all 50 states and even multiple countries, as our survey is still in its youth and kind of developing. Right now we have 10 states represented and 1 country over in Italy, so we're hoping to grow that. But I feel confident that we can share some important information from this survey. So the first thing I will share is everyone that completed this survey is a passionate motorsport fan. They love racing. For both 2005, 2020, 22, most people attended somewhere between 5 to 10 races a year, right? So you think about it, that's quite a lot of engagement. I'm going to also remind you that we asked about the previous year, which was a pandemic year in 2022. So the individuals completing the survey are passionate about motorsports. So they're passionate, so therefore their views towards women in competition might be something we want to consider and maybe think about discussing moving forward. We did notice a kind of a transition in 17 years over about the most popular form of motorsports. So what you're looking at now is a likelihood test of what type of event you would attend. So for a given individual, what's the percent likelihood of the type of race you will attend? In 2005, the number one choice was the IndyCar, which was at the time kind of the IRL kart series. That has shifted to 2022 to now most popular is IMSA, so going sports car racing. Now, I'm sure John Doonan, who was here yesterday, probably really appreciates that. I remember I'm a physiologist, so I don't do sports marketing or sports business, so I can't really explain why you're doing that. But what I can say is, if you're going to target athlete development and there's a lot of popularity in IMSA, you might want to develop your skill set to go towards that type of racing. So now we know that IMSA is a popular form of motorsport to choose. Who is making the decisions of what type of race we're going to go to? So when someone's going to buy a ticket to a race, who's dictating that? So we asked these questions. The first one was, I decide what motorsport races to attend. So that's the individual making the choice. For both years, the individual completing the survey was the one that made the choice. So male or female, I get to choose the race I'm going to, and I'm happy to make that choice. Okay. We also asked some questions about friends. So we asked, how do you feel about your male friend decide what motorsport races to attend? And what was interesting was that for both 2005 and 2022 surveys, males relied on their male friends for selecting what motorsport races to go to, as opposed to females relying on male friends. So what that means is the female chooses, I'm going to go to the race I want to go to. The male will say, lean over to his buddy, hey, what race do you want to go to? Let's pick that one to go take a look at. Okay. So we know what type of motorsports is popular. We know who's making the decisions to go see them. We wanted to ask some questions about who is attracting and inspiring attendance. And we want to take a look at it from the eye of the female participant. Okay. So we asked individuals, how much do you agree, disagree, or you're kind of just neutral about these several questions? The first question was, women racers bring fans out to the races. Okay. 2005 is just kind of orange is the blue bars, orange is 2022. And for the most part, males agree. Like, yeah, women racers bring fans out to the races. However, what's kind of interesting is as we've progressed from 2005 to 2022, we've noticed that female responses have become more neutral about that. So female fans are, I don't want to say indifferent, but kind of in their feelings of female racers bringing fans out to the track. We're going to talk about why that might be in a little bit. We next asked the question, women racers inspire young girls to get involved with racing. Over 17 years across the board, absolutely. Males and females all agree that women racers are inspiring young girls to get involved with racing. We next asked the question, how do you feel about it's good for boys and young men to see women racing along with the men? Both years, men and women, absolutely, it's a good thing. Strongly agree. To kind of give you an idea, just in terms of psychometric analysis, very rarely do we see this level of agreement across two surveys over 17 years. Okay, it's quite substantial. So, this is a great thing. We want women racers. We next asked, do you know male fans who enjoy watching women drivers compete? Again, all strongly agree. We enjoy watching female competitors out there. Again, in terms of psychometric analysis, having this level of agreement is kind of rare, and that's kind of exciting to see such a great thing. So, we next ask this question. I wish more women were involved in motorsports. Again, both years, males and women, strongly agree. I'm going to again remind you, it's quite rare in psychometric analysis to see this level of agreement over 17 years roughly. Okay, so from these responses, we know that the motorsport fan, the individual that attends somewhere around 5 to 10 races a season, wants to see female racers compete. And they feel they can be inspiring, and they want to see them there. Okay. What was also interesting was we had some open-ended questions. I won't bore you with all those. I'll give you the summary because I know lunch is on the table soon. So some consistent observations. One, the female is the bad driver joke, not present in the survey. Females are not fit enough to drive the car, not present in the survey. The idea that driving a race car is unfeminine or not supposed to be in the pits, not present. So the motorsport fans don't feel this way. What they also fear is it's quite clear that most fans, both men and women, want to see women in racing, they want to see them succeed, and they want to see them given opportunities to be successful. Okay? Again, I'm not the sports marketing person, but if your fans are saying this, you should probably give the fans what they want. So I've told you some good things. I'm going to now tell you some interesting things and maybe some problems that we should think about discussing. Okay? So from the 2022 survey, we had a variety of open-ended questions, and one of the questions was, list a female race car driver. Okay? Top 3 answers. Can you take a guess? Yeah, I heard all 3 of them. Danica Patrick, Lynn St. James, Janet Guthrie. Okay? The interesting thing that came out of this was, of the 400 some odd responses, only 7% listed a female racer that was active within the past 5 years. Okay? So we talked yesterday quite a lot about visibility and seeing the female racer out there and being present. Your passionate motorsport fans aren't seeing the current racers. And so it's not being at least transmitted in this data. So the reason we think this is due to, we don't see a lot of female racers in the top tier series. So I'm talking about IndyCar, NASCAR Cup, Formula One, IMSA, DPI, not very present. And so why is this lack there? Why are they not in that series? And this is where we're going to kind of transition and talk a little bit about athlete development. I'm going to highlight 2 studies that came out of our lab over the past couple years. The one on the top we did about 5 years ago, and this came out when there's a popular media trend about females not being strong enough to drive the race car. We have the kind of the lab equipment, all this to go test it. So we did the study. We went to Formula style cars, closed cockpit cars. In fact, as I look around the room, I see a lot of people are in my study. So once again, thank you. And we found that driving the race car is no more fatiguing for a male or a female. In fact, females may actually be able to tolerate the heat inside the race car more than the males. They may also have a slightly higher G-force tolerance than the males. So if you were to put a female in, let's say, an Indy car that now has an aero screen that's very hot, and you try to run around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I think that would be a good thing. I think there might be one person in the room that might actually like that idea. So it was kind of a nice study to do. It was negative results, like no difference. Male and females can drive the car just as well as anyone, as long as they have proper seat time and training. But as we did the study, a lot of interesting conversations happened. So we kind of started asking this question, well, why do you feel there isn't someone in a DPI or isn't in Formula One? And so we did the second study, which was published in Psychology of Sport and Exercise. And so just as a preface, I'm a physiologist. I always make a joke, I'm a neck-down physiologist, so I don't do a lot of the brain cognitive stuff. But I work with some great sports psychologists, and we talked to these drivers, and we tried to assess why is it that there's this lack of progression up there. And it was really interesting. There were a couple things that were brought up. One was obviously getting opportunities for funding, okay, so getting the funding resources. Another option was, how do you develop me as an athlete to be able to go from, let's say, go-karts all the way up to the top series? How do I get the proper resources, training, nutrition, time just to be successful? And then the third thing that I didn't actually latch on to, this is why I work with great sports psychologists, was they said, how do I market myself as, kind of a novelty, like I'm the female on the grid. And initially I kind of just, didn't really fully understand what that meant, but since I worked with some great sports psychologists, they actually said, well, the novelty idea is not the best situation to have. And so, so Jill and Carl on this paper really kind of led to this idea that novelty is associated with unique, which is good. It's also associated with one-off, which means won't be back at the next race or wasn't at the previous race. So when the media presents that, or a female driver says, I'm novel, I'm unique, there's an underlying self-talk assumption of, I may not be here at the next race. Whereas some of the male competitors will be like, oh yeah, I'll be at the next race and I'll blow the doors off you. So it's a little bit of a mindset type of deal. So I'm going to give you some conclusions, and I know I've identified a couple problems, and like my mom always told me, if you identify problems, you better throw some solutions up there as well. So motorsport fans want to see female competitors. Females have the physical and cognitive skills to drive the race cars and be successful. And the one caveat I'm going to give there, if they're given proper seat time and if they're properly trained. Okay. The financial restrictions, kind of the, not a straightforward ladder series, and this idea of a female driver being novel hinders progression to the top tier series. Okay, so how do you address this? And so I have some future recommendations, and I'm going to maybe give you a model to follow. So firstly, promote women racers in the media for other things than just the female on the grid. Encourage female drivers to have a unique presence. And then also develop a proper female driver academy, athlete development program, whatever you might want to call it. There are people that are kind of starting to do this, but really actually putting some force behind it so that they're progressing. So we start our drivers really training at like 6. That's when they're in go-karts. There's a lot of human development that happens across those ages that other sports have figured out and kind of laid the foundation of how to take someone, give them knowledge, skills, and abilities to progress up to the top tier series. And this is my soapbox I stand on in my field is I don't feel that's there in motorsports, and it could be better. So I'm going to give you something else to think about for your future recommendations. Who knows what this is? So it's also called football sometimes, right? So yeah, so I heard a couple of, so this is the UK team that won the Euros this past summer. So interestingly enough, at the time, it was one of the highest viewed football broadcasts in the UK, regardless of male or female participants. The broadcast very rarely mentioned the idea of a female football or soccer player. Instead, talked about tactics, strategy, skill, knowledge to play the sport. Okay, so actually doing what you are as an athlete as opposed to just being there and being novel. Now, this photo was taken in, a couple months ago, but the lead up to this photo was actually a 10-year process. Okay, so the story is actually quite inspiring to think about. Is So the FA, the Football Association that kind of runs soccer or football, I have to be careful, I make sure I say it correctly depending on who's in the audience. They decided that we were going to support our female athletes, and it is going to be a ground up level. So they started with the younger athletes, giving access to the soccer pitches. So giving athletes that were young, that were interested in playing, the skill, the talent, and the development progression to go through there. So what I've done is I've basically copied, which is not always a good thing for an academic to do, but the Football Association's list for how they wanted to implement this from a players, coaches, club development, facilities, commercial, and marketing aspects. And then what I did is I just took motorsports and I kind of just changed a couple terms here and there, some things to think about, okay? So we'll take the first one. So for the FA, for the soccer players, developing the training, playing, and overall environment players experience so they can be the best they can be on and off the pitch, okay? For drivers, how hard would it be to be able to develop driver athletes to have the physical and mental readiness for elite level competition, okay? So I know we heard a lot of individuals that have kids and they're getting involved in sports. There's quite a process for developing kids as they progress through the ladder system, where it's not just about being fast as a 6-year-old in a go-kart. It's actually about let's build this foundation, this skill set that you will lean on over the next couple of years, and actually you progress very incrementally. I know in motorsports, a lot of times it's driven by a financial restraint of, well, you can drive this car in this series, this aspect, but building that so that you can be ready to handle very high braking pressures, be able to handle the high G-forces in the corner. It's physiologically possible to train anyone to handle them, they just have to be able to go through it. Again, this was a sanctioning body mandate that came from the FAA, so they also wanted their coaches and leaders to kind of adhere to that. It's very simple to also tell our team owners, managers to say, hey, let's encourage this, encourage a DEI aspect to motorsports. We heard a lot about that yesterday, how it's being done. So it's just a matter of encouraging that. The key, if you read the literature, the key to the FA's success in doing this was their club development. So they didn't say, let's go find a female soccer player and place her in, the Olympics right away. They said, let's go find the kids that want to do it, let's give them access, and let's build them and develop them. So thinking about how we approach a ladder system, I know we talked about Mazda and some of the things they've done, that's great. So building that system so there's a natural progression. One thought may be, does every IndyCar team need to have an Indy Lights team? In terms of facilities, quite a lot of effort was placed on the health of the football player. I encourage that for motorsport. Again, this is, if I can accomplish this goal, I'll retire and never come back. I want to see a major sports medicine presence in motorsports for not only the drivers, the pit crews, all individuals, that we are developing them, we are treating their injuries, and that they are able to progress through the system and not burn out due to various injuries. I will also say, the last two, from a commercial and marketing communications perspective, I just basically changed football player to driver and copied it exactly. So some things that they did, so defining female drivers' commercial value and engaging with partners to grow revenues and inward investments. For marketing communications, growing the reach and appeal of the female driver by increasing exposure and awareness. So we've talked about being seen, how important that is. Through race day activity and series channels, driving bigger attendance and series following. So making them integrated into the series as opposed to just being a one-off unique thing. So with that, I will say thank you very much. I am honored to be here. Thank you for listening to me before lunch.
Thank you, David. We all have our opinions about what needs to happen. And I know that research is probably a little bit hard to process, just looking and reading. But we got to have that. I learned that we really need to have information, data. I really do encourage somehow that you guys expand that survey to more of your network. We've got to make it valuable information, and even though David tells me that 418 or whatever the number was is enough, it's not enough. I want to at least get it to what we got.